And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Rupert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. A few years after 3 Prince George residents began talking about the idea of a northern university, the provincial legislature passed Bill 40, the UNBC Act, officially creating UNBC. We open our archives to 1992 as we begin today's Open Connection.
We have of late become concerned about the quality of our efforts. We have come a long way in a short time. We do not want to risk everything on a target date.
Citing tremendous pressure to meet the September 1993 deadline, UNBC's interim governing council has delayed the opening of the university until September 1994.
The decision was a difficult one for the interim governing council and for our administration. The reasons
Council Chairman Murray Sadler says the decision is based on a number of issues, including the ambitious timeline for completion of campus facilities. He adds hiring has proved to be a considerable task because of the high number of applicants, and the concerns about regional programs must be addressed.
The question of being able to conduct some consultations to meet the regional concerns that we've heard a lot about recently is something that we feel we have to pay some attention to. We feel we have to be responsible. We have to give dates that are reliable, and this date of September 94 is a firm and reliable date.
This release indicates the university will proceed in stages, offering some programs in the fall of 1992, and then more in the fall of 1993, advancing to full operations in several locations in northern BC by the fall of 1994. Just 2 weeks ago, the focus was still on getting the Prince George campus in operation by the initial target date. On March the 8th, a provincial task force met for the first time to review UNBC's proposed regional operations. 4 days later, the interim governing council decided on the delay.
Personally, I'm really pleased about the announcement because I think there's a recognition there that that things were not proceeding as quickly as we'd all hoped they would, and that the priorities had steered away from some of the original concepts in terms of the interests of the people here in the Northwest. So I think now, if we get on the ball right away, that we have the opportunity to turn that around, change some of those priorities, and hopefully see a whole change of direction of the university.
There's been a great deal made up of the curriculum of UNBC over the last couple of months, particularly here in the Northwest. The pressure from community groups, the words from Northwest Community College, has that affected this decision? Has that forced UNBC to maybe make this decision, do you believe?
I can't say it forced them to make the decision, but it undoubtedly was a major factor. The community groups, on the whole, across the whole of the Northwest, have been most impressive as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they've not been parochial. What they're trying to do is maintain a vision that everyone had. And it's not an unrealistic kind of expectation either. And so, yes, I think they've had a major impact on it.
Is it your opinion it's a prudent one that's well thought of?
Yes, it is. We definitely need the time to work together on programs. The emphasis that they put on there in terms of working cooperatively with colleges and communities is needed to get those groups underway so that there's joint planning. The emphasis on the use of facilities and resources and so on throughout the North, and their emphasis there hasn't been looked at to date. So yes, I think it was absolutely necessary, and I think in the long run, I'm very optimistic that it may be a turning point to a successful university that we all want.
And what of Northwest Community College? I've read your plan over the next 3 to 4 years. It's very extensive. Does this decision have any ramifications at all, and if so, what?
I think it's very supportive, actually, of our plans. I think if you note the central theme in our plans is that ownership, turf, is not important. What our board has committed itself to is trying to ensure the maximum amount of access for the people in the Northwest to education. Whether we offer it or someone else offers it doesn't make any difference. And I'm really proud of the board for doing that, because I've worked with a number of boards in a number of provinces, and it's the first one I've seen that has the courage to come out and say, we're here about education, not ourselves.
Jeffrey Weller has contacted you about other news regarding funding and programming for Northwest in the Northwestern area. Can you outline what that's been?
Sure. I got a letter from Jeff this morning in response to some inquiries which I had made to him, and I have inferred, and in fact I'm sure he's confirmed, that UNBC is willing to put forth financial and consulting assistance to work with the college and the community groups in Kitimat to work on the applied technology program, and to work with the college again and the community groups in Rupert to work on a marine program and a proposal for fine arts as well. In addition, he's confirmed that the university next year, 92, 93, we're still talking about, would be willing to offer up to, say, 5 courses in support of the college here in Terrace. And I think we're not going to have the money to do any kind of major expansion, and I think working together we can certainly give the students a lot more potential than they would have otherwise.
So students in our area can look forward to classes in the fall of 92 into 1993 in regards to, in conjunction with UNBC?
Yeah, but my proposal at this point is that we not look at third-year classes, because we don't have a strong second-year base to build from, that we work together. We'll try to expand our second year. If UNBC could do some second-year offerings, then we could have a strong core and be in a position for UNBC then to move and begin third and fourth-year offerings in the subsequent year with a substantial base of students to work from.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. In 1960, police in Sharpeville, South Africa opened fire and killed 69 people at a peaceful demonstration against apartheid pass laws. In 1979, the United Nations General Assembly declared March 21st the International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Let us return to the archives with Chairperson of the Kitimat Multicultural Association, Reg Stowell.
This past Saturday, the Canadian Association of Broadcasters honored the distinct multicultural background of this country. The CAB proclaimed March 21st as a day to mark an end to racial discrimination. There may not be a better example of interracial society than right here in northwestern British Columbia. The Northwest is a melting pot of different ethnic and racial backgrounds. The greatest evidence of that likely comes from the district of Kitimat, where citizens from all walks of life have worked together to produce a thriving community. It's taken hard work, and according to Multicultural Chairperson Reg Stowell, a great deal of understanding among all people. According to Stowell, it is that understanding and diligent commitment to working together that is the best solution in reducing and perhaps eliminating discrimination.
Firstly, I think trying to combat racism is perhaps the wrong way to go. Racism has a negative tone, and as soon as we say we're trying to combat something negative, we've got that extra difficulty to overcome. I think we should accent the positive. What we've done in Kitimat is celebrate the multicultural, diverse nature of the community. And I think that's a much more positive way to approach the problem and has a much better chance of success.
I have to agree with you, but the hard, cold facts are this, that although you feel that way, and it's a very positive approach, the majority of people still stay in that situation. They're saying, well, we have to defeat this. Like you say, we have to beat this, and you're saying that's the wrong way. But I think the bottom line is that's the majority of people. So is it a mindset that we have to change when we talk about people?
Well, I think it is exactly what it is, because I think we've both got the same goal. The person who says we've got to combat and we've got to defeat racism is trying to do exactly the same thing as those of us who say we need to celebrate the diversity. we're all shooting for exactly the same goal, we just take different approaches to it. And I believe that our approach and the way we've approached it in Kitimat has a much more positive effect. When we can get 3,000 people come to our festival every year, year after year after year, that's celebrating the diversity. That's recognizing and appreciating the differences between us as well as the things we have in common.
Now, you've talked about a tremendous success story in Kitimat.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the success story is not the same elsewhere across our country and, for that matter, across the world. How does one go about implementing that? How did Kitimat do it?
Well, Kitimat started off with a real advantage in that right from the day the community was formed, we had a large immigrant population and very strong ethnic clubs. I think the thing that's given us the advantage over a lot of other communities is the fact that we have the strong base and the pride in the cultures that the people have come from. And the willingness of people in their ethnic clubs to show the contributions that their culture has brought to Canada is what helps us build a strong community. I think that that's really how we can build a strong, united country, by showing where all of us come from. What makes us Canadians is the differences that we bring and the way we can work together.
In essence, you're talking about sharing.
You bet.
And it
That's
makes an awful lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Problems do arise in our part of British Columbia, and I think of necessarily the non-native native issues that seem to pop up. That's scary, and there are some people that absolutely fear the potential that exists there because of the rising feelings. How do you think that situation can be perhaps alleviated or certainly lessened? Because it is at times a frightening thing for a number of people in this part of British Columbia.
I think you hit the key words. It's frightening, it's scary, because people don't know. I think there are a number of non-native people, the majority of non-native people probably don't know what our native population means when they talk about self-government, when they talk about self-determination. And because they don't know what the natives are talking about, they're afraid of it. I think that if we talk to each other, if we share our cultures with each other, if we learn from each other, we'll get a greater understanding of what the Aboriginal people mean when they say that they want self-government, when they say that they have a culture that goes back thousands of years and that they have something to contribute to the total Canadian mosaic. If we're willing to listen and learn from each other, a lot of the fear is going to go away.
Why do you think, let's use the term non-natives, why do you feel or think that non-natives have developed such a fear? What causes that fear?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I think more and more we're learning how badly we have treated the native people in Canada over the last 150 years. And I think probably there's a fair amount of shame in that most non-native people wouldn't particularly like to have their own noses rubbed in how badly we have treated our Aboriginal people. We certainly wouldn't like to be treated like that ourselves. I think that's one reason why we're afraid of it. The second one is that a lot of us have long established terms in the region. We consider this part of the country our home as well as the native people do. When we hear native people talking about land title, land claims, self-government, we get nervous about what does that mean to me? Does that mean that I'm going to lose my home? Does that mean I'm going to lose my job? And because we're afraid of what we don't understand, we are going to oppose it.
So in summation, the direction that's being taken now by instigating talks, is that the direction we should go?
It's the only way we can go. If we don't sit down with each other and talk about what we all want to see happen and how we're going to live together, we're never going to resolve the problem. The bottom line is that someday we're going to come to a resolution of the native problems in British Columbia. At the end of that resolution, you and I and our native neighbors are all going to still be living here. We'd better come to a solution together that we're all going to be happy with and want to live next door to each other.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. In 1964, the Prince Rupert Rainmakers were the first team from outside the Lower Mainland, Fraser Valley, Vancouver Island Power Base to win the provincial title. Let us return to the archives as Prince Rupert Rainmakers head coach Mel Bishop gives an assessment of the 1992 team.
Rupert Rainmakers won this year's Senior Boys AAA High School Basketball Zone Championship. The Rainmakers beat defending champion Caledonia Comotes 2 games straight in a best-of-3. The next step for the Rainmakers was a sudden death playoff against Mount Baker for a berth into the Sweet 16 Provincial Championships. But a 2-pointer with 2 seconds left on the clock gave Mount Baker the berth and gave Prince Rupert the ride home. Despite the early exit, Rainmakers coach Mel Bishop says the year was not a disappointment.
Actually, the kids last couple of years have worked quite hard, especially defensively. We like to concentrate on our defense. I believe that's has a lot to do with the outcome of games.
Did you feel at the start of the season you would be in the provincials, you'd get this far?
I thought we would, because we had a lot of kids returning. We have 9 seniors this year, grade 12 students, and so that's really an advantage. We have all these kids returning for their senior year.
What did it look like going into preseason? Let's look back to when you first started putting this team together.
Well, I knew that we had, our front line is pretty solid. Guys have very good skills. Derek Dudoward helps us. You know, this is probably the biggest team I've ever had. Derek being 6'5" in the post. And traditionally, Prince Rupert's been very, very small. Good skills, but small. So when you do play lower mainland teams that are, have a bigger enrollment than yourselves, a lot of times we get beat on the backboard. And if you get out rebounded very badly, chances are you're not going to do very well. These kids are from this area. They play together lots. The Civic Center is always open in the summertime, so the kids have a great chance to play a lot of basketball. Like the Civic Center is open all summer, and they get in there free, and they can play as long as they want, basically.
Mel, how have you yourself developed this team? What did you do?
Well, we start early October time. We run across country for about a month and a half, and we also weight train as well. In the preseason, we don't really touch a ball, but I think that's one thing you can control as a coach is the aerobic or your cardiovascular fitness of your athletes, and also strength. I mean, not everyone's blessed with great quickness or great jumping ability, but I think you can control their fitness level and also their strength. I don't think the kids really enjoy that, but I think they just come to expect it because we do this every year.
Bishop says that while individuals make up the team, no one part was bigger than the whole. All the players involved, from the starters to the bench, had a specific role.
Point guard is Chris Sankey. Very good skills, good handle, and very team conscious. He likes to hit open people and keep people happy. One of our off guards is Jeremy Quast, 6'3". He's actually grew about a couple inches over the summertime, which is kind of nice. And he shoots the ball well. Another team conscious guy, keep guys happy. Derek Dudoward, our center, 6'5", good defensive rebounder, and has also worked, he's finishing a little bit better in the post as well. He's actually scoring a little bit better. Another post player is Trent Scar, 6'1", good athlete, jumps very well, and not a bad defender. Kevin Campbell's another addition this year, 6'2", great jumper, good scorer. Should work a little bit on his defense. So. And off the bench, we have, I think we have a lot of solid people off the bench as well. Colin Lean, very good shooter. Willie Bedard plays good defense, can shoot the ball. There's a number of contributing people. We concentrate a lot on defense. I would think that over half our practice is spent just working on defensive fundamentals. Basically, defense starts with defensive transition. I mean, you got to get back to stop the opponent's fast break. Then you get your half-court defense, and after that, you have to rebound their missed shots for the defensive rebounds. So if we can do these 3 things well, I think you should be in every game. And also, I really like to have my kids work hard. I don't like getting outworked in the game. I really believe that's what the game comes down to. If you can outwork your opponents, chances are you will be in every game.
One of the mainstays in the Rainmakers lineup this year was senior Jeremy Quast. He was one of the guys looked upon for leadership in the co-captain's role.
Considering what happened last year, we were fully expecting to win and went up the terrace, and they played tough and beat us in 3 games. And so first thing we wanted to do was win the zones this year, and after that, hopefully show well at the provincials. Actually, we wanted to win the provincials, but our first goal was to win the zones.
Okay, so you've achieved that goal now. What's been the secret for the Rainmakers?
Basically our ability, I think, to overcome adversity, because we've had a lot of disciplinary problems and injuries, and one of our starters, 6'4", is out with a broken arm, and and our 6'6" guy just got back, and we survived well without him. Basically, on the court, it's because of our ability to run. I think we can run with anybody, and when we didn't have the height, we were able to run real well and beat teams.
The Rainmakers spent most of the 91-92 season provincially ranked in the top 25 and entered the playdowns ranked number 19. Did being provincially ranked help or hinder the club?
I think for the northern clubs here, probably I think it helps you a little bit because it's probably good for your confidence going down there. But there's a lot of teams that are very solid there, and especially in Prince Rupert, like our enrollment now is probably at about 180 kids, grade 11, 12 boys. And when you're playing against Steveston, it has like 750, or Abbotsford, maybe 800 grade 11, 12 boys. It's, you know, you have to be ready to compete, because we're actually a AA size now. We could play AA this year.
But you're playing AAA?
We'll play AAA, yeah.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
A lighthouse keeper or light keeper is a person responsible for tending and caring for a lighthouse, particularly the light and lens in the days when oil lamps and clockwork mechanisms were used. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Skeena MP Jim Fallon shares his thoughts on lighthouse automation.
Well, it's too bad we're having to go through the loop again. We fought this battle, and I think many of us on the coast thought we'd won it 3 years ago, although even at that time we lost three light stations. The proposal now is that north of the northern tip of Vancouver Island, Cape Caution to Prince Rupert, to eliminate all of the inside passage light stations, which would be incredibly stupid. The Coast Guard are going to have some public hearings just related to the horns and to the lights. But as every mariner and most people who fly the coast know, the light station and the keepers are our insurance policy for safety under storm weather conditions and hurricane conditions, and under many other kinds of situations of fog and heavy weather. And we passed 2 resolutions and set up a new board that will operate out of Prince Rupert to deal with the issue, but it was unanimously opposed, the idea of destaffing light stations at the meeting, and it was unanimously proposed and supported that we demand an expansion of service, not a reduction of service, because these light keepers provide weather information, they provide search and rescue assistance, they provide medevac assistance, they're involved in many environmental issues. In terms of even at Addenbrooke, the light keeper there last year took a sample of oil from a freighter that was passing by that was dumping oil illegally right here along the BC coast right into our fishing grounds, and it was the evidence that he collected that was put before the courts in Vancouver and brought about a conviction and a $100,000 fine. So they're doing things far beyond just going up and shining light bulbs and making sure the foghorn works, and I think for that reason we'll win it.
You know that, and many people in northwestern British Columbia along the coastline of BC know that, but does Transportation Minister Jean Corbeil now know that?
I think he'll probably realize how hot this topic is and will reflect upon it. The 7 coastal MPs have written to Minister Corbeil. I orchestrated the letter last September. He still hasn't met with the 7 of us. We represent 800,000 British Columbians, and I think if a minister from Quebec in Mr. Mulroney's cabinet thinks he can snub 800,000 British Columbians, he's wrong.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.